right. Well, first off, talking about process, like everybody has their own thing that they do when they're coming up with their own story. You guys each have a title that you're known for, right? Like Rocco just kind of let in. So I was wondering if you guys could share a little bit about the process of, like, how does the germ of the idea start? Where does that start from for you?
Who wants to take this first?
You want me to take it?
Yeah, go for it.
Go ahead.
I will come up with an idea, or I'll sleep and I'll wake up and I'll be like, that's the idea, and I don't touch it forever, for like 3 months. And if it's still around in 3 months, I don't write it down. If it's still around in 3 months, it's an okay idea. That's my process. That's the germ process. I don't trust anything I write. If I write it down, then I feel like I have to do it. And if I don't write it down and it's still stuck earworm style, then I can go.
I get that, because if you don't write it down, if it just sticks around in your head, just like that, then you feel like it's an idea worth holding on to.
Yeah.
It's worth farming out, fishing around, and just sort of seeing what comes out of it, and just taking it from there. And I guess the next step might be just penciling it out, just a rough sketch or like a thumbnail, and just see where it goes from there. And tag team.
Yeah. Well, in terms of my book, like, I created Tuff Stuff during the pandemic because I had a lot of time on my hands. So I was watching like the worst B movies from the 80s and 90s imaginable, and I'm like, I want to make my own movie, but then I realized I'm kind of like limited in what I can do. So I was like, well, I'll just do it as a comic book. And I'm just like, why not just take those movies where they didn't have the budgets to do like the right explosions and special effects? Like, I can draw all that, you know what I mean? So it kind of built itself just based on that. And then a lot of it too is like how Jamie said, like, I'd get like these fever dreams, and I would sit and write up the whole plot to like 3 issues in a row, like in one night. Did it all, and then like that process gets refined, and then that's how a script comes. And the script will be, I'll write beats, like my page beat, the action that's going to start to the end of the start to the end of the page. That's one beat, right? So I write 40 beats, and then I refine that, and the next thing I know, I have a full script.
One thing I noticed about all 3 of you is how much work you guys put out. Like, you guys are always sharing things online, and it seems that all 3 of you have one more thing in common besides being amazing cartoonists, is like time management and like putting stuff out. I mean, at least from my end, I don't know, obviously I'm not behind the scenes, so how do you guys stay so prolific and like, don't get burnout, which I think is, easy for a lot of creators, and still get excited about what you're doing? And you guys are constantly putting stuff out, like, seems like at least every other day, like, I see something from either one of you.
It's the illusion of the internet, because I'm burnt out right now.
I think we're all a little burnt out from the travel and everything, but yeah.
I stayed up till 2 last night after the drink and drawing more. So
you did, yeah. I know you mentioned that to me at the table. Yeah.
For me, it's like I haven't gotten where I want to be, and I'm not gonna stop till I get there.
Okay.
In a sense. So.
Yeah, my trick for burnout is to stop when I think I want to do more. Like, if I hit a certain point in the day and I'm working and I'll go until 7, and I know I have a page prepped to ink in the morning, that's how I deal with that. I'm able to just wake up and I know exactly what I'm doing. Never getting cold, right? Always staying warm is huge. Feeling like you haven't done enough is also a big thing. I've been doing a daily comic strip for the last 155 days, and that changes your mentality. Because now you have to put something out, especially once I hit 100, I was like, oh, I guess I'm doing this now.
There's a different way to divide your labor too. Like, if I'm tired, I won't pencil or I won't ink.
Okay.
When I'm tired, I color, because I color my own work. So that's kind of how I gauge it. I won't force myself to draw when I'm sleepy, because I know I'm not going to put anything good on the page. But I can color because I kind of just coast through that. And
you're still getting work done.
And I'm still getting work done, yeah.
Something that's interesting too is, like, you guys are like true cartoonists. You guys are writing and drawing your stories, right? So I mean, Kevin, you kind of elaborated on writing full script. What is the process like when you guys are doing stories? Is it script first? Are you penciling and then adding in, like, you just have like the beats or like loose plot? Like, how does that work for you guys?
I plot everything out. So my degree is in writing. So I feel like I come to cartooning and drawing from a lesser artist standpoint, but I can craft a story, and I use my big thing is The Anatomy of Story by John Truby. That book.
Okay.
Every time I write a book, I'll look at that. It's a 22-point system, and you just kind of fill it out, and then from that filling out of everything, it's like there's an opponent, there's an ally, there's the villain, all of that stuff. By the time I'm done using that, I have what the book will be pretty much all laid out. And then I'll write a loose plot, pretty Marvel method in that regard. And then I'll just start drawing it. But I'll draw it on printer paper, so it's not nothing's set in stone. I can just chop up and paste things around. Mm-hmm. By the time I'm inking it, I think I've drawn the page like 4 or 5 times. And that's my process.
Yeah, I'll sometimes draw something digitally just because it's easy to sort of cut and paste the panels around and just sort of rearrange them any way you want. I mean, I've done that manually in the past. It's like literally drawing on a loose leaf paper and then like maybe sketching out a 6-panel grid, but then I'll just like physically cut up the grid and say maybe this panel goes better here, or that goes better there. Maybe if I extend this sequence this way, this panel can go, maybe 2 panels lower. See if I could sort of pace it out a different way. But doing that digitally is just even easier. It's cleaner. You don't have to cut paper and clean the paper up, and you just place it however you want. And I mean, that's sometimes how I write. Sometimes, just being more of a visual person, sometimes I'll just like do the tiny thumbnails and draw it out and just sort of see what happens from there. And maybe either extend the sequence or shorten the sequence depending on how the comic strip goes. If it's like a single panel strip, a single panel comic, then I'll just, you've sort of, whatever idea, is easy to, whatever's easiest to execute that punchline in like the one panel for a single panel comic strip. You figure, okay, what's the most exciting sort of point that sort of describes this picture, this scenario, So that's one way of doing a comic panel strip. What's the most sort of powerful moment within that little short story in that one box that'll say this is the setup and the punchline and all that sort of telling the story in between, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Whenever I work with writers, I will push them to draw out the script first and just be like, does this visually work? And if they fight me on it, that we probably don't end up working together.
It's a red flag.
But just saying, hey, actually draw this out. And they'll say, oh, I'm not an artist. I say, I don't care. Just I draw thumbnails and stick figures for every script I write. So having somebody work in a visual language before they have to just type up stuff, because when you're just typing or when you're just writing, you go wild and you add too much for a panel, you add too many actions. There's a lot of editing that needs to be done after the script is written to make that script actually work visually. But if you just like write how many panels are on the page and just kind of loosely draw in something, just squares and dots, it doesn't need to be anything fancy, that helps. I think when you're working full script, that helps a lot.
It's definitely how Harvey Picar, I think, wrote a lot of stuff. He would just do stick figures and just like in boxes and just say this stick figure is saying this and this stick figure is saying that. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be a perfect or drawing in and of itself when writing it. Just saying, I see these sort of 2 figures here and they're maybe saying this, and then that's why he got better artist than himself. I mean, he was just like the writer, but I mean, he got like a Robert Crumb to sort of like really punch it up and make it what it is today. I mean, that's like sort of the perfect collaboration there when like the writer is willing to just sort of put pencil to paper and say, this is how I kind of visualize it. You help me punch it up to this point.
Yeah.
I think to what you were saying too is like, for me, I I'm doing everything, right? So I'm refining until the day it goes to print. So I'm changing everything as I go. I don't care about rules. I think they're meant to be broken. You could tell by looking at my book. Maybe it's amateurish, maybe it's not. Maybe it's what's working for it. I don't know. But like I said, like I start with my plot points, develop it into pages, thumbnail, everything, and then, like I said, I change things around until the very end. For example, I'm in the third act of the book I'm working on now. And the villain crashes a ship, right? So he comes out of the wreckage, and he has to do his like 1-page monologue to kind of say what he was doing. And I'm drawing, and I'm like, he just crashed his ship. Everything's, he's all mangled and stuff. I'm like, he doesn't need to be wearing pants. So that's not in the script, but for the whole third act, the guy doesn't have pants on. I think it's hilarious, and it's something while I was drawing, I was like, I'm just gonna draw this guy's butt because I think it's funny. Like, why? I'm not going to limit myself to not having that in the script and just drawing it, or having the writer not think of that, So,
do you separate writer and artist in yourself personally?
No, I think no one takes me serious as a writer, and it's like, you guys realize, like, I actually have written like 20 comics, right? Like, it's not like I just started, So.
A lot of gold in those scripts, though.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's all just based off of like actual experience, So not crashing a ship pantsless yet.
I wanted to ask you guys about like maybe structuring routine. Like, do you guys give yourself a schedule to like that you stick to that like helps your creativity? Like with me, the older I get, the more I find like, I became more of a morning person. So I'm like, all right, let me set aside this time of the day or this space. Like, do you have a creative space? Things like that. Like, how does structure and routine play into your creativity, if it does at all?
Yeah, structure is great. If my fiance is there, she makes me go to the gym at 4 a.m. So when I get done, it's like 5:30. I don't have to be to work till 8. So that gives me 2.5 hours to draw. Yep. I'm wide awake. I'm fresh. I'm going to get my best. I might even, pencil, even ink an entire page in that.
Yeah.
On the other side of that, it's the end of the day, and I've worked, and I've cooked and cleaned, and I've done all this stuff, and it's 8 o'clock till whenever I pass out is when I'm working. But I just make sure I work 2 to 4, 6 hours every day.
Nice. You guys?
I wish I had more structure, but it's just kind of I'm too much of a night owl sometimes. I like no distractions.
But that could be your structure there,
Yeah, but then it's like it's wreck on my sleep, and just like when I have to go to my day job, it's kind of But I mean, I get it done.
Yeah.
But I'm also like pounding back like 6 coffees in a day, so that's not good. But I mean, I try to. I did take upon myself when I did my sketchbook. I mean, when I first started doing conventions and panels and stuff like that, I was just selling the one comic book. But then I figured, let me try and do a sketchbook. So I gave myself this project that let me just do a sketch a day for 100 days, and that'll be the sketchbook. And that's basically the idea that got me to do a sketchbook in the first place. So, I mean, if that was a structure for I wanted to do this project, I gave myself the 100 days, a sketch a day. Yeah. That'll be the sketchbook, and then I gave myself also the end goal game. So I mean, the end game goal was just like at the end of the day, at the end of those 100 days, I'll have something that I could put together, and then I started the process, editing, laying it out. How am I going to design the book? And then that's sometimes you just sort of need to give yourself a project to get something done, and that's sort of my structure. I wanted to. I had a collection of work that I had sort of amassed when I first started blogging, back when blogging was a thing. And I said, okay, well, I have this blog full of artwork. Now I could put all these pieces of digital art I have. It's all scanned in, and sort of lay it out in Illustrator or Photoshop or whatever other program I was working on, and then just sort of format the book this way. And then, at the end of a few months, I had this book that I could sort of sell off. And then that was, my sort of structure to get into self-publishing, doing conventions, stuff like that. So I mean, it took some time, but I mean, you give yourself a project, and then I mean, I try not to drag it out too long, but I don't beat myself up about it either. About like I got to get it done this time. It's like it gets done when I feel like it's done. I mean, I won't try and drag it out, but I also won't beat myself about it either, because we all got lives and we got things we got to do, responsibilities and stuff. So it's like you got to sort of work out that life-work balance with yourself. I'll stop rambling.
The working on the daily strip has changed my workflow pretty significantly. I read in a book that E.C. Seeger used to go fishing Monday mornings and would write a week of strips with his assistant. And so every Monday morning I wake up and I write a week of strips.
Nice.
And I'll try to, by end of Monday, have that week penciled out. And so Tuesday I'll ink the strips. It's very long days. I've noticed that I've recently been having, where Mondays and Tuesdays are dedicated to the strip. Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays are dedicated to client work or in different things, projects that I'm trying to get off the ground. Taking one of those days to upload all of the strips and have that ready and formatted, so I don't have to think about it at 10 o'clock in the morning when those things go out. But I'm an early riser if I'm not out too late. All of my friends work in the service industry, so we have some late nights together. But that's my structure now. Is if I am going out with friends, I'm not touching. That's my finally put the tablet down, put the brush down kind of thing. Because otherwise I just work. If I didn't have friends, I'd just work.
I know this is kind of a simple question, but what is your favorite part of the process of putting a book together? Because you guys do it all, right? So is there something you prefer more than others? And is there something that kind of you like the least? I mean, obviously you're making comics, you have to love it, but like, what's your favorite? What's your least favorite?
Good question.
Least favorite, penciling. Most favorite, inking.
Interesting.
Why?
Because penciling requires the most thought and the most work, if that makes sense. Because you're translating your thumbnails into what's going to be on the page, right? I mean, you got to figure out your perspective, your composition, where your speech bubble is going to go, how's the flow, what's the layout, what's the all that. It's all right there, right? Everything is all in the pencils. So it's the most, critical. That's where I'm going to beat myself up the most. Inking, and once those pencils are down, I'm just flowing with it. You know what I mean? And I'm seeing what I'm capable of doing. I'm seeing it come to life. So.
For me personally, the sketching is usually my favorite part, because that's when the work is the loosest and the most free, and the action is very just rough, raw energy. When you have to clean it up, it requires a bit more thought, like you said there. But it's the roughness and the energy of the first initial sketches is sort of what inspires you to really push it forward and keep going with it. And when you finally have a book all together, I kind of like also the editing process of just sort of saying, okay, well, this will look better here, this page will look better there, or maybe these panels don't need to be needed, or maybe this whole sequence could work better in black and white as opposed to color. It's just, playing around with all that editing and stuff. That's a fun part.
This is where I lose people. Drawing sucks. Drawing, once I get to the drawing part, I feel like I'm just doing manual labor, and it's 8 hours of just sitting at the desk and drawing. I like the freedom of thumbnailing and script writing. To me, are very, very close in my just regular process. Love that. Love telling a story. boy, howdy. do I have to draw because I make comics? Yes. And don't get me wrong, I love drawing, but it's
labor intensive.
It is the labor intensive
Yeah.
part of this industry, this business. So that is often the part that I will butt heads with. Like I'll wake up and I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna ink 4 pages today. I don't want to do that. So then I write more. And that's why I have work that's constantly coming out, is because I'm constantly writing stuff and having ideas, but then you just have a stack of things that you have to draw.
Have you really inked 4 pages in a day?
Yeah.
Ew.
We can talk. Yeah.
You ever
Like
you ever think about just jumping straight into the inking and maybe just sort of inking the rough sketch stuff?
I've started penciling on copy paper just at size, and I'll do it really loose, and then I'll blow that up a little bit and I'll ink on that, and that makes that process a lot more fun.
Yeah, definitely. Because it's a bit more freeing. It's not you don't have to follow the line as closely, or as a what's the word? Well, you don't have to follow as closely because you're just doing the rough sketch. You're following the ink in the rough sketch, so you don't have it's more of a guideline as opposed to like this rigid factual line. It's like, okay, this is a bit more of a free flow and has more of that still raw energy sort of aesthetic that's kept to it.
Yeah, I pencil with a big brush or with a big pencil. It's a 5.6 millimeter chunk of blue lead, and on regular copy paper, so 8.5 by 11 copy paper, blow that up, and then I'm inking with a number 4 brush, and I can get really tight with it, but yeah, I'm definitely drawing in the inks more than I'm drawing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Pencils, yeah.
That's good because it keeps the sort of energy and the rawness to it. I feel.
I grip a pencil too hard too, so that at the end of the day, after penciling all day, I'm like, I can ink all day because it's with a brush and it's really light touch.
I ink over my pencils directly. So I will pencil super loose, super light, and then take a kneaded eraser and pretty much just like erase the entire thing. So it's like the lightest, like barely traceable line ever. And then I just kind of redraw it all with the ink. So
That's probably why you hate penciling, because you do all that work and then you're fucking.
I just erase it.
know?
Yeah. Well, I do everything old school. It's like we have all these modern tools, and I'm like, I don't want to use any of them.
That's what I was going to ask too. Like with the, you can do stuff physical or you can do digital. Like for me, like my reading experience, I don't like reading on a tablet or a screen. Like I want to have the book in my hand. How does that differ for you guys when you're creating? Like, what do you prefer? Digital? I know digital's for convenience. It's there, right? But what do you prefer?
I have a pretty hybrid mix of things right now. I color digitally because that's a lot easier. I will either pencil traditionally but really small. The strip I've been penciling digitally and printing that off and inking traditionally for no other sake than it's easier to bring to a coffee shop. I was that guy who was bringing tons of pages, pieces of paper and a clipboard to a coffee shop and working, and it was just, I just felt like I was getting in the way of people, and bringing the tablet out and just inking or penciling.
You don't take up as much real estate.
Yeah, I can get this big. I already sprawl. Like my bags are everywhere.
If I'm doing a professional cover, like for a publisher, I'll do a lot of my pencils digitally, but then I'm gonna blue line it and ink over it anyways, then rescan it back in. But yeah, it's like he said, like it's a hybrid mix, but I really do as much of my penciling like raw on the page. I can't draw on a tablet. I feel like it's never dynamic enough, and it's always stiff. So when I'm drawing my book, like I do the circles, I do the rods, I do the cones, and that's how I build my figure, and I can twist it and contort it and all this stuff. If I'm relying too much on digital, I'm probably going to use too much reference. It's going to look flat. It's not going to look natural. It's not going to look fluid. So I've been drawing for 30 plus years. I should know how to draw a figure at this point. If I can't, I'm in the wrong business. So it's like I stay away from that as much as possible. I'll light box though from time to time if I'm in a rush.
Last word from Jason?
Last word?
For this segment, we'll say.
Well, I mean, I light box as well. Yeah, I mean, I just try to. I mean, I work a hybrid as well. I mean, I just sort of whatever fits the project the most. It's like if this, I feel like I could work with it better. This particular page might work better if I hand pencil it. I'll hand pencil it. If I feel like maybe I want it tighter, I'll do it. I'll draw it digitally. If I want like more of an airbrush look, I'll color it in Photoshop. If I want more flat colors, maybe I'll color it in Illustrator. It just depends on what I feel like, what tool would best fit whatever project I'm working on.
Very good. All right, we'll take 3 questions from the audience. This gentleman?
Yeah, I got a question just for any of y'all about story structure. So y'all talked about a little bit about the germination process when you come up with an idea. From that point, are you guys thinking about I guess, how do you think about paneling as you're writing the story? Like when you're thinking about the page spread of the comic, are you guys thinking about that just like when you're writing the story, are you thinking like, okay, there's probably going to be a spread somewhere around here, or like I know this thing's going to come up, I better line up the pages as I'm writing it, and then how do you put that into your script? Or are you like, is that something where you're going to do that as you thumbnail and try and line up the action and the timing for the turn? Mm-hmm. Do you know what I'm saying?
No, definitely. I mean, I think your answer was similar to like what Jamie was saying. It just, I mean, as far as me, I just kind of, I'll lay out like a 6-panel grid or 9-panel grid or however I think I imagine a sequence might go on a particular page. And you got to think about, how much of the story do I want to tell in, these panels, or maybe I want to lessen the panels. But you sort of you think of the situation and sort of how you want to get to the end of that situation at the end of the page, and this sort of you figure out what goes in between the beginning and the end there, if that makes sense.
Sometimes when I'm writing, I'll have like something I specifically want to draw, right? Say I want to do a 2-page spread, right? I'll think about like how you said, I'll think about what's leading up to it. What's the purpose of it? I like, in my books, I like to do a 2-page spread right in the middle of the book. And it's usually like the big action sequence I'll throw right in the second act, right? So it's right there. You think about that. It's pretty much like you said, though. You're thinking about it as you're writing. You're building it into the script. You're going to lay a page out for it. You're going to leave room for it. You can always add it, but then you got to remember that you're multiplying your page count at that if you're adding, right?
Exactly.
So then you got to think about how is that going to lay out in the book? Is it gonna lay out weird? Is it going to be, is your reveal going to be when you turn the page? That's when it should be, right? When you.
But so then when you're writing it, are you thinking does that spread, if you want to have a splash, like is that affecting how you're thinking about the story from the start?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Does it influence like, okay, I know I want the story, so then the beat has to. This is where the beat has to be.
Just like you described it. Yeah.
You're writing around the image.
Right.
I might be more structured than both of you, just in the way I lay out pages. Every page when I'm designing a book or writing a book is in a double-page spread. I know exactly what panels go here, how do they relate, page turn, another 2-page spread, right? And I break everything up into 3 panels every single page. It's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And if I need to, split one panel, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You're right. And then you're working to that big, page turn image, single page, double page spread.
Forefront. It's forefront.
Always. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That book layout, how many pages you think the book is going to be, is always forefront. Yeah.
Something else you want to consider too is on each page always having like a setting depicted somewhere so we know where you're at. I mean, I don't want to see a book where it's people fighting and there's no backgrounds or something. It's like, where are they? You know what I mean? I'm just supposed to guess where they are. So that's something you always want to have. I always think of having like an anchor shot or a money shot on every page. Something to really keep pulling people in, keep them interested. So yeah, but I always try to tie that into everything that I'm doing too.
Okay, you sir. We'll get you next. No, you're next. Yeah, and then we'll get him.
What are your thoughts and approach to lettering? Like, do any people what's today's lettering guide or deal or digitally or whatnot?
Question is approach to lettering. Just
Again, I think it's just whatever I feel like the project would fit best. Like if I'm drawing something by hand, I'll hand letter it. If I'm, drawing something digitally in Illustrator, I'll try and find whatever font might work best in the Illustrator program. I'm not just going to go with Comic Sans or something. I'll just see, or maybe I'll just digitally write the font myself. I'll just pick out a nice brush stroke and just sort of write out the thing myself. It all depends on, or if it's maybe like an EC type parody strip I'm doing, and maybe I'll just get like a regular typewriter font. It all depends on what I feel like, what fits the project most. I mean, I'm not trying to limit myself to I only do hand lettering or only do this type of lettering. It's just like, at the end of the day, you want to put the book together in somebody's hands. So it's like, whether you hand letter or digital letter it, it's whatever you feel like looks best for the project you're working on.
I made a font.
Nice.
So I cheated. It's my handwriting, but it's my font.
So it's not cheating.
I also lay out all the word balloons on the page. I got very lucky. My handwriting, when scanned down, hits about an 11-point font in my for the font. So I'm able to really place where the balloons and everything go. So.
Like I said earlier, I refine my process as I go. So I've tried doing that, like a hand lettering, and I'm changing things too much to do that. So I just do all my lettering at the very end because I'm gonna put more jokes in there that I can think of when I'm writing it.